Michael Dueñas, I want to get your general concern with the CDD going forward.
Yeah, I have two main concerns. One are around the issues of equity. As a person of color, Mexican American, my big issue has always been, what's the district doing to help people of color do better in school and really reduce that opportunity gap between students of color and white students? This plan, as it's rolled out, it's not clear that it's going to do much of anything except move students around. They give lip service to say, we're going to have ethnic studies, but ethnic studies doesn't have a budget item. They're not budgeting to really give the funds to address the achievement gap and the opportunity gap for how are we going to teach students of color better in the district. The other part is the fiscal. The way it's rolled out, we have no idea what the current expenses are, what the current revenue is. They're just giving us figures that aren't anchored in any reality right now, as based on the material the board has given us and Ed Graff's administration has given us. That's hugely problematic because we don't know if the expenses are accurate that they're reporting. The transportation costs just changed suddenly this weekend with no explanation. They've increased, I think it went up to 46 million from 36 million. What just happened in the last week? And if you didn't keep on top of some of the material that's being released, you would have no idea. And so I'll just leave it there. We'll get more into some of the financial aspects later.
Absolutely, absolutely. Zeinab, I want to get to your general concerns about the CDD, please.
Coming from a Somali parent speaking, I feel like the gap that has been played out several times when it comes to the achievement gap between the whites and the Latinos and the African American / the Somalis, which come under African American. That gap is something that worries a lot of our African American parents, especially the Somalis. And with that said, that with this CDD change, there is no solution to that. As in fact, I feel, and also speaking to other families, this gap will actually widen. It will get actually worsened because of several reasons. Barton Elementary, which is magnet school, has a lot of Somali-speaking families that go there. And one of the reasons that they chose that school is because of that gap. It helped that gap to shrink it within that school because of the magnet, because of the open progressive, because of the K-8 magnet. All that stuff works well with it. But now that with the CDD change that's foreseen, it would actually worsen that. And a lot of parents, their number one concern would that be is the gap between the Latinos and the African American and whites, like I've said. But I've spoken to a lot of families, especially I'm talking about from the Somali American families. A lot of parents have several concerns, but that obviously it's one of the concern is the gap. They want to stay in Barton. They want to stay in Barton all the way to K-8. And with this change, obviously changing to K-5 zoning within Barton shrinking, that's a lot of issues. And also my number one disappointing one from the Minneapolis Public School is that the Somali families actually found out right before the pandemic. We're talking about maybe a couple of weeks, 3 weeks ahead before the pandemic. And that's a very serious concern that a lot of families have, and it's oftentimes they're overseen because they're not English speakers. No one has reached out to them. They were confused right before we went on the pandemic. There was a lot of confusion that was going on with the CDD. All about the language that they've actually written, that they translated, does not make sense to these families. No one actually sat down with them and explained it to them. There's a lot of concern, but from what I'm understanding and from the ones that I've actually contacted, what I've tried to explain the little bit that I know was that gap kept coming up.